Hi, you are listening to This Is Not Your Practice Life. I'm your host, Macy Renee, and we are going on a journey together, my friends. I'm a certified life and emotional intelligence coach. And if you really want to step into your highest self, there are a few non-negotiables you're going to have to learn, and I am just the person to help you do it. No matter your past, I'm here to help you create a more fulfilling future. So stick around with me. Not only will I teach you how to navigate your brain's daily mind drama, but I'll help you actually understand your mind, your emotions, why you do the things you do, and why others do the things they do. Most importantly, I'll help you build the self-awareness skills to create whatever results you want. It's never too late to change the trajectory of your life. After all, this is not your practice life. Hello, good morning, and welcome back to another episode of This Is Not Your Practice Life podcast. My name is Macy, and I am so excited you're joining me from wherever you're listening from in the world. So today we're going to talk about honoring your word as law. This is something I talked about in one of my podcasts way early on, like probably in the first year that I did podcasting. And I had someone reach out to me the other day and they were like, do you remember what episode you were talking about honoring your word as law in? I've searched everywhere. I've tried to use keywords. I can't find it. And I remember it wasn't like the main topic of the episode, but it was something that came up and I tried to find it. I couldn't. And it's a very good topic. So I told this person, you know what? I'll just do an episode on it. So that way it's easily searchable and more people can benefit from it and binge what it means. So that is where we are. Before we get into honoring our word as law, I do want to remind you that enrollment is open for the second round of the hybrid experience. You have until September 23rd to enroll. And here's the thing about this program. It is advanced emotional intelligence work. Here is some feedback that I will give you. I have 8 women in the current round, and we are about 2 weeks away from the retreat portion of this program. And some of the women that are in this current round have been clients of mine for 4 years, 3 years, 2 years, 1 year, 6 months, 3 months. Okay, so I've got a range and then a client who had never worked with me before. And the biggest amount of feedback that I'm getting is one, it is advanced, okay? It is challenging even for the clients that have worked with me for 3 and 4 years. It's very intentional though, because whenever I was creating this, it came from, the fact that I have been coaching for 5 years. I have picked up on patterns that I have seen over those last 5 years. And I have really been able to dial in what people struggle with as far as their emotional intelligence and mindset skills that keep them from having what they really want, like why they keep self-sabotaging, why they start something and they don't finish, why certain aspects of their life feel, maybe really bad or just not how they want it to feel. And that can be personally and or professionally. So we really do dive deep into this program and you learn skills at a much deeper level. You learn things that maybe you've never learned before, and it is meant to push your mind. Like, I want your mind to be able to think at higher levels, to be able to be more independent, and to be able to problem solve for the things that are not working in your life. Like, that is a skill. And then how you carry yourself through all of that emotionally is a skill. That's what determines whether you keep going and doing the work and getting what you want or you don't. So it is challenging. If you've had coaching with me before or even anybody else, you're probably well prepared for this room. Or if you've had a lot of personal development and you're ready for the next step, you're well prepared for this room. If you've never had any kind of coaching, if you're new to your personal development journey, you might need another step before you're ready for this room. But if I can answer any questions about the hybrid experience, feel free to reach out. You can learn more about it at macyrenee.com. If you listen to this podcast immediately once it's released, August 31st is the last day you can join utilizing the payment plan, and then that goes away. But enrollment itself closes on September 23rd, and we would love to welcome you. So make sure that you're on my email list, that you're following me on social media, so that way you don't miss out on all of the things to come in the next 2 weeks as this current round comes to a close. We're really excited to get to the retreat. All right, let's talk about honoring your word as law. What does this mean? So this was one of the very first concepts that I learned when I was a client of coaching starting 7 years ago. It's hard to believe that coaching has been in my life for 7 years. And to say that I have loved it is obviously an absolute understatement. I loved it so much. It's what I decided to do with my life because it transformed my life so much. So honoring your word as law is a concept in which you think about your commitments and the things that you want to honor in your life. It can be anything. It can be habits, routines, boundaries, whatever it is, whatever that means to you. You take those things that you want to be consistent at or committed to, and you honor them as if they are a law. So what this means is basically, we have tons of laws in the United States. There's laws all over the world in different countries, and we abide by those laws. When we don't abide by those laws, there are consequences that we have to pay the price for, right? So if the speed limit is 55 and you're going 90 and you happen to get caught and you've broken the law, there are now consequences to breaking that law. You're going to have to pay a ticket. You might have to show up in court, right? You're going to have points on your license. If it's, happened more than once, you might have your license revoked. So there are consequences to breaking the law. Now, what a lot of people struggle with in their life is honoring their commitments. Okay, so you will say things like, starting January 1, I'm going to work out every single day or 4 days a week, and I'm going to eat, at least 1 to 2 healthy meals, and I'm, not going to go crazy on the ho-hos and ding-dongs and the chips and the candy. And you do good for a few weeks, and then all of a sudden you fall off track, okay? Or maybe you're like, I'm going to be better at communicating with my partner because we struggle with communication. I'm going to be better at it. I'm going to really make an effort to be open and vulnerable, and no matter how terrible it feels, speaking my truth and sharing what I want to share and, being a better communicator, I'm going to do it. And you do it for a while, and then maybe they respond poorly and your system gets kind of shocked, your emotions arise, and then you fall off track. You don't want to do it anymore. It doesn't feel worth it anymore. It's like, why am I even doing this? Maybe another example is that you don't want to be the parent who is yelling at your kids. You're like, I grew up with parents yelling and I didn't like it, and I don't want to be the parent that's also yelling at my kids. And you do good for a while, and then you kind of forget your commitment. You get caught up in emotion, and then before you know it, you're yelling at your kids. Okay, so there are a ton of ways that this can show up. It can show up with money commitments to yourself. It can show up with how you're going to, show up in your workplace and your job with your coworkers. It can be in relationships, whatever commitments that you make. And the humanness in us is that we make a commitment with the 5% of our brain power that works from conscious decision making. And the other 95% of our brain power comes from subconscious, pre-programmed autopilot behavior. So what this means is consciously, when you commit to something, you have to decide to do it over and over and over again until it becomes a part of who you are and goes from the 5% of the brain power you have to make that conscious choice to then get programmed into the 95% of your brain power where it becomes autopilot. And where a lot of people go wrong, right? Or a lot of people fall off track with what they say that they want is they make the commitment with the 5% of their brain power and they start the process and they do good for a few days, a few weeks, a few months. And then the 95% of their subconscious that is used to doing it the opposite way comes in and says, hey, I'm really uncomfortable having to consciously commit every single day. I'm really tired. Can we go back to autopilot? Can we go back to being who we were before we made this commitment? Like, can we do that? Can we just quit and just say we tried? And a lot of people fall for that. Okay, so they fall for that in their fitness goals, in their health goals, in their money goals, in their personal development goals, in their relationship goals, and all of their goals. Okay, it's one of the number one reasons you hire a coach, because it's so subconscious that a lot of times your brain has blind spots around it and you don't even see how quickly you go off track and how to get yourself back on, you know? So we do this. And when it comes to honoring your word as law, when you're using this concept in your life, you think about it in the sense of, what if I wasn't allowed to break that commitment to myself without a consequence, as if I were also breaking a law? And so it might seem a little bit stern, but sometimes our brain really has to think about things differently, right? In a new perspective in order for things to stick. So for instance, it's hard for me to come up with podcasts sometimes every single week. I think this week is episode 190. That's 190 weeks almost of pure consistency. There have been times where I've taken a week or two off. I think the longest break I've ever taken off might be 3 weeks. Actually, I really do think the longest break I've ever taken has been 2 weeks. Okay, so 190 weeks of showing up. I will tell you in my humanness that I don't always want to show up. Like, ideally, even, I would have recorded this episode last night. And I crawled in bed last night and I was like, oh, I just have so much going on in my brain. I'm not even sure I would be in a clean headspace to record a great episode for them. I will record it and release it on the day it's supposed to be released, but technically it's going to be a little bit late. However, something that I always come down to is I do want to honor my word as law. I always say you're going to get a new podcast on Mondays. And so therefore, when my humanness is wanting to back out from commitments, it's like, what if it was a law? What if there was a consequence to not showing up? What if there was an actual consequence to not recording the podcast? And here's the interesting thing, you guys, is with every decision we make, whether it's at a macro level or a micro level, there is always a consequence. Okay, we might not be breaking a literal law, but there are always consequences to every decision we make. On the weeks where I, have taken a 2-week hiatus from my podcast, my ratings go down significantly. My downloads go down significantly, and it creates this gap a lot of times in my audience being able to listen, in which case there are multiple consequences to that. Okay, so really, like with whatever decision you're making, you're always getting a result, which is, if you have listened to this podcast for years, if you've worked with me in any capacity, you know that our thoughts create emotions in our body. Those emotions in our body then drive the action that we take or don't take in our life, and the action we do or don't take in our life creates a result. So if I want to be the person that podcasts every week, and I have the thought, it doesn't really matter, people aren't really listening, then that creates a feeling of maybe like non-committal or feeling sorry for myself. And from that feeling, my action might be I don't show up to the podcast. I don't record consistently. I don't show up every week consistently. I don't, post podcast on the same day. And that the result that I would get from that is not, inconsistent listeners, probably not as big of a following, lower ratings, not as great of a podcast. So there's always a result. There's always consequences to every single, action that we're taking or not taking. So the whole premise of honoring your word as law is that you follow through with what you say you're going to do. And here's the thing, you're human. You're going to fall off. This is not necessarily the end all be all. It means that you're going to be perfect all the time. It means that you're never going to have human moments where you fall off track. That is not what this means. But what this does mean is that when you decide something in your life, I am going to be more calm, cool, and collected when my kids are tantruming. I am going to show up to, my appointments and not bail out. I am going to this. I am going to that. Whatever it is, because like I said, it can be applied in any capacity in your life. When you notice that your brain is trying to wiggle out of it, that you have the awareness of what if this was a law and there were consequences to breaking it. And that helps you go more future focused into what result will be created in my life if I don't follow through. And from there, you get to evaluate on if it's important for you to follow through based on who you're wanting to become or who you're really wanting to be as a person in your life, or if you don't, right? So I do want to be the businesswoman that provides free value for people who cannot maybe afford coaching. I still want you to be able to work out your brain even at the most foundational level possible. I do want that. That's important to me. And because that's important to me, the commitment needs to be that I, show up every single week and provide an episode for you. If I know that I'm going to have a lot going on 2 weeks from now, 4 weeks from now, then I need to work ahead and I need to do more work than maybe I, would normally do. Maybe I need to record 2 or 3 episodes in a row so that they're scheduled so that I'm not inconsistent, right? And so I have to operate at a different level. And when that's important to me and my brain wants to go, we don't want to do it. I don't feel like it. They don't need a new episode this week. Who cares? Maybe not as many people are listening, or, the downloads haven't been as, bumping as they normally are. Whatever excuse my brain could give me, I always think to myself, what if this was a law? And I just wasn't allowed to break it without consequences. And so therefore my brain goes into the future and it thinks, what would the result be of, not honoring this commitment that I have made? And I can list a whole bunch of them. And then I ask myself, is that who I want to be? Do I want that result? Would I be okay with that result? And that's what it really comes down to. If I'm not going to be okay with that result, then I need to really get my butt in gear. If I am okay with that result, then I need to reevaluate my commitment and I need to reevaluate, my goals and who I said I wanted to be and understand why all of a sudden that is changing. So there's always, the opportunity for me to inquire more about myself when I am utilizing this concept both in my life and in my business. And really, it comes up a lot even in the hybrid experience program, right? Because at the beginning, they set goals and they get really clear on what they want to be better at and what they want to do and who they want to be. And throughout the program, as they're learning these advanced emotional intelligence concepts, they're seeing all the ways that their brain is wanting to pull them back into autopilot behavior and pull them back into subconscious behavior. And so we're always in a state of evaluating, why aren't you doing the things? What has changed, or what are you struggling with? Why, right? It's getting really, really clear on how our humanness shows up and what parts of our humanness we do actually want to work on, for, the result that we really do want in our life, and what parts we maybe want to reevaluate that end up not being as important to us. Okay, so it's a constant evaluation kind of awareness process to have. And this concept in and of itself is very helpful for when you notice that you're wanting to bail on the very things that you said you wanted to do at some point in your journey. Okay, so I hope that this is helpful. I'm so glad to you, the person that asked for this episode. Thank you for reaching out and saying that you wanted to hear this concept again. I think that this will be helpful, and now it is isolated so that people can search it and find it and listen to what it really means. And if you have any questions about this or anything else, just know you can reach out. Find me on social media. My Kentucky came out. Find me on social media at Macy Renee Coaching, or you can learn more about what I do on MacyRenee.com. And if you're ready for the next step in your journey, you're ready to take, the foundational podcasting to more of what you want to do in your life specifically, and have coaching catered to your unique circumstances and what's going on in your life, then I recommend going to MacyRenee.com, scheduling a free 60-minute consult, and we will talk about what the options are for working together, if it feels like a good fit, and if you are ready to move forward. So, all right, I will see you guys next week, and I will talk to you soon. Bye. Hey there. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of This Is Not Your Practice Life podcast. If you'd like to connect on social media, you can find me on both Instagram and Facebook at Macy Renee Coaching. And if you want to stay up to date on all of my offers, announcements, and inspirational emails, you can join my email list at MacyRenee.com. In addition, if there's a way that I can further support you in your coaching journey, you can schedule a free 60-minute consult at MacyRenee.com anytime you want, so we can discuss the best options for you. I look forward to seeing you next week, and I hope you have an amazing day. Bye.